Hello, and welcome to Phantom Zoned, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer. After we watch the films, we then put it on trial for its crimes against humanity. And once we discuss the various terrible moments of it all, we decide to judge it. If it's guilty, then it ends up getting shot into the Phantom Zone in the far, far reaches of space. As you can tell, we're trying to change this up a little bit because Scott continually complains about how long the intro is, and every time I try to change it a little bit, I mess up a little bit more. So I hope that you are happy, my good friend and co-host Scott.
By complaining about the length of the intro, you made the intro longer, and therefore...
See, there's no way to please this man.
And you also didn't say what your name was. What's your name, Adrian? Oh, fuck, I ruined it. Fuck.
My name's Adrian.
I'm
Adrian Torres. You are Scott Daly. We've been doing this for a little over a year now, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, the options that we get when we're covering movies are kind of getting to the bottom of the barrel. I know there's a chance for the 4 or 5 listeners out there. Maybe if we're lucky and we're up to 10 for once. Are possibly complaining in the back of your mind, going, you did say that at the beginning of the month was when you were going to start your process of having female guests, and you are correct. We did not have anybody who was able to be available to sign up for this spot, but we do have a bevy of upcoming guests that we do have booked for basically the next 2 months. We're trying to fill in the gaps at the end of December, but it's basically just trying to work out schedules with cult people. So for the rest of November, we're going to have guests. For the beginning of December, we'll have guests, and we're going to have guests going through December. Starting next week, we will have our first guest, who is a friend of Scott and I. She's very cool. Her name is Dee Dee Crimmins. She writes for a couple different websites and magazines and stuff. She's written stuff for Rue Morgue, Birth Movies Death, and you can find lots of her current writing over at filmthrills.com. We're still working out what movie we're going to watch with her because we want to try to be somewhat nice to everyone.
As nice as you can be on a podcast like this.
Exactly. Then after that, we're going to have Liz Nelson. She's here in Kansas City. She is one of the most tenured hosts at the Alamo Draft House here in town. And she's also the theater / video production teacher at a very prominent high school here in town. So get a different opinion there. And then after that, we are going to have the lovely Sarah Jane from Talk Film Society. If you have not read any of her work, go over there. She does a fabulous couple series. One of them is called Overlooked and Underseen, which is giving a lot of attention to films that are either old or new that you may not be aware of. She also has a whole selection of like weekend stuff that she always puts out. It's lots of fun. She is great. She also had a couple articles that she did earlier this year talking about why it's hard sometimes to go to movie theaters these days. And it connected with a lot of people. So definitely check that out as well. At the beginning of December, we are going to have Jill Six. She is a very talented upcoming filmmaker. She's done a whole bunch of music videos. She's done several short films. Her most recent one, as of essentially last year, called The Stylist, is available on Shudder. So you can definitely see it there. She's working on several more other things, but she's worked on a whole bunch of stuff. If you've ever seen ABCs of Death Part 2, at the very, very end of the credits, they have an extra short film that's added on there. and she directed it. So
Man,
she's
this is
very
what I
cool.
get for not watching the credits.
Yeah,
I've seen that movie, but I did not stay till the end.
Yeah.
I will have to do that before she's on here so I don't look like an idiot.
There you go. And we've got a couple other people that we're trying to talk to set. We have somebody who we don't know what date they're going to be, but they're probably going to be in either December or January. And that's Vivian Crane of the Mary Sue, who is their I'm not sure exactly what the title is. I won't say that it's like feminist opinion piece, but I don't want to get that wrong because I see her in real life and she will yell at me, and she is a very intelligent, opinionated individual. So if I get it wrong, she will use a series of words that I do not know to make me feel bad.
I am looking forward to her being on the podcast. Then I just want to sit back and listen to her or yell at you. That'd be great.
That's what some of these are going to be. I will not do anything wrong, and some of the guests will give me a hard time because they know me and they see me on a regular basis, so they will feel that it's okay to needle me a little bit more for the movies that they sat through. I'm doing what I do always, in that I give them a series of options, and then they'll choose which movie they want to do. So I try to wash my hands of that, but I know that, Scott's just going to be laughing for the majority of these episodes.
That's very true. No, I'm very much excited for the next couple months. I think it's very cool. I think we came here and we had this great big conversation about wanting to do this. And then you went out and did it. And we've got all these smart, wonderful women coming to our podcast to talk with us about terrible, horrible movies.
Oh, and
it's really cool.
I forgot another. In January, because she had to switch back because she's got lots of stuff going on. But Stephanie Crawford, who is from the Screamcast, who writes stuff for the site, and then is also on the actual podcast itself. So that's another one. Sorry.
No, that's good.
I totally forgot. I was going to feel bad if I left somebody out of the people that we've confirmed, because there's other people that we're waiting to hear back from. So that's what I'm excited about. And the response has been good. When I start to talk about it, the people get excited, and so it makes me feel good that we're doing this and we're going through with it. So
yeah, me too. I'm very happy, and I'm very excited. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a string of really good episodes, and hopefully we can keep this guest thing rolling into the future, because I think when we have a third person, we do have other people,
but we're going to push it. The couple people that have had reach out saying that they want to be guests, because I'm like, no, we've got this thing that we want to do, so we'll have you on. It's just not going to be until like March to be safe. Yeah,
and we need someone to come between us sometimes, when we disagree.
Yeah. We needed somebody to come between us on this movie
to stop us from watching it.
Because Scott was casually mentioning when we were trying to decide about what film to see, he does another podcast on his site that covers, is it an online book, or how would you?
Yeah, I would call it an online web serial. It was published chapter by chapter over the course of 2.5 years, I think.
And he does a podcast for that. That's a million times more popular than this, just because of the detective.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, there's a very passionate, loyal following, because people love this book very much.
Who give you money for your Patreon, whereas we don't have that. So people would possibly give us money to stop, but that's not how Patreon works, I believe.
I mean, technically, we could do a stretch goal. We will stop this podcast. I mean,
we can, in like maybe that'll be our New Year's resolution to put that forward. But I would gladly sign up for just an individual Patreon thing, just to see how mad people were in the world. Not necessarily for this, but just in general. I'd be interested if there was somebody out there who could start a Patreon that was basically, hey, so subscribe to this, and I will stop putting out content.
That would, on the one hand, it would be nice to get people donating you money. On the other hand, it's because you're doing terrible things. So I don't know.
to you, depending upon the type of person you are, and depending upon like your level of narcissism and stuff like that, you'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
You'd be like, A, I'm making free money, and then B, I'm still in the minds of these people.
But technically, this podcast is hosted on the same platform that all the other ones are. So if you like this podcast, if you want to donate to this podcast, you could. The Patreon account that I have is a big umbrella that covers all of this. It covers all the other podcasts we do, including this one. So
this is kind of like the blood leech of podcasts. But he mentioned that in one of the forums that was talking about one of the most recent episodes, they brought up the subject of anime.
Yeah.
And that Scott should do a bad anime.
Well, it's because what happened is I said anime sucks because I think anime sucks, and I did not get a good reaction to that. Some people were upset, and so then they decided to punish me that I should have to watch a bad anime, which we really. This is not technically that. No. It's not an anime. I went in search of like an easy to find or possibly free on like Vudu anime, and all they had were series. And I was just like, no, we don't want to sit through something like that. And while I was scrolling, I came across the title of a film that we had basically threatened to do a while ago, and we had several other movies fall into our lap that we decided to do instead. But it just felt like the time was right that I saw it on Vudu, and I'm like, Vudu for free. We meant to do this a while ago. Let's jump on it. And so, of course, because you've read the title or you just randomly clicked on this, we are doing The Legend of the Titanic from 1999. An animated classic, said Vudu, which
yes, as part of the title, on Vudu, it's The Legend of the Titanic, and then it's got because I'm an idiot right now and I'm really tired. Was it a colon or a semicolon?
It's a colon. It's a full-on colon.
It's a full colon. It needs to get blown out. Sorry.
It's a terrible, terrible joke. It's awful.
It works for this movie, but it says The Legend of the Titanic, an animated classic. Which is
like, that was a Vudu call, because I've not seen that subtitle anywhere else on the internet.
No. It should be.
It's a bold claim there, Vudu.
Because we threw it out last week for Blood Ring, the star rating for this film on IMDb is at a 1.8 out of 10.
But how many? Yeah.
2,992 people.
Wow.
Which effectively puts it at number 24 in the bottom 100 on IMDb.
That's impressive. And it more than earns that.
Yeah, well, especially because here, I'm going to read this to you, Scott, and we will see how you react to it. IMDb's plot synopsis is a grandfather mouse tells his grandchildren the quote-unquote real story of the Titanic disaster, including himself, evil sharks, a giant octopus, and an evil whaling scheme.
And that's all 100% accurate. So someone sat down in front of a computer. They had their final draft program open, and they said, "What if Titanic, but mice and octopuses? I don't know what the plural of that word is. What
octopi?
What the? Yeah, it probably is. What the fuck? This movie, like a Titanic story for the whole family with talking animals."
Well, I don't think it should be for all families.
Who thought this was a good idea?
I'd also like to point out that this is episode 32, and we are just now getting a film where the plot synopsis is 100% what actually takes place in the film.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no second guessing. There's no short-sightedness when it comes to the plot synopsis. that terrible information that we got is exactly what appears on screen.
Yeah, it does leave out the magic moonbeams, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. It leaves out a lot, but it does include things that actually happen in the film. Because I wouldn't be surprised had like we read another synopsis for some other film and in there it mentions like a giant octopus or something like that, and we're just like, no, that did not occur in this film.
Yeah. So remember that really expensive, like highest grossing film ever until Avatar movie? That's not how it really happened. No. This is the story, and it involves mice and talking dogs and birds and gypsies, lots of gypsies for some reason,
and 2 dogs.
Whaling is a big part of this movie. Lots of whaling.
World whaling rights.
Yeah.
It's continually uttered.
Yeah, and so this is I guess this is an Italian movie. It was originally in Italian. We watched the dubbed version, which explains why I had a really frustrated note where I said, why did they not bother to make the animation line up with the things that they're saying? Because it's dubbed.
Well, my note is the only emotion humans have animated is quote unquote mouth agape. There are a whole bunch of people who are just continually slack-jawed and confused by everything that's happening in the film.
Yeah.
Which seems about correct.
Yeah. I think we should just get it. I don't know what else to say generally besides let's just talk about this fucking mess of a movie.
Just tried to get through it the best that your brain can, because that's it. We're talking about a movie that starts with New York playing.
Yeah, what a tone-setting movie about a ship disaster that killed thousands of people, right? That's great.
Camera flies over the city and threw me off from like 5 seconds into the film, because the first thing you see in New York is a sign for Braniff. And Braniff is the name of a now defunct airline company. But it's etched into the minds of people's heads for the last 20 years. What is this? I'm trying to think of what season they're on now, but at least the last 20 years, because Braniff is what you see on the airplane at the very end of every South Park commercial, or sorry, South Park episode.
Oh, you're right. I was wondering where the hell you were getting this from. That is true. That is
true.
So
so from the start, you got the animated film that starts with Braniff, and I was taken out right away because all I could think of was South Park.
South Park version of the Titanic would be much better than this. Better. And I don't even like South Park anymore because it's bad now. But I digress.
It continues over the city and goes up this building and then into a window. Doesn't go to like a small window or anything, just goes into a window and shows the interior of a New York apartment that is occupied by mice. So I thought this film was going to be about like humanoid mice.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting twist on the story.
Exactly. Because they've got a whole bunch of rambunctious kids who are talking with their grandpa, who his voice is very weird in like the way it fluctuates and wavers, because it sounds like a younger person trying to do an old man voice. And I don't know why that's necessary, as opposed to like just hiring an old man to record a voice.
Also, nobody cares. So just do your own voice. Like it doesn't, they're mice. Like, what does an old man mouse sound like? Are we fact checking this?
There might be. Someone might be. I mean, technically, if we go, we'll get into the IMDb part later, but there is some factual checking that went on and is posted on IMDb, and it is pretty beautiful. But among the things that the kids find is they find this suitcase that's open that has, I guess, mice newspaper clippings, because it's a newspaper.
Yeah.
And we do have a humanoid, newspaper kid throughout the film who's yelling headlines to everybody.
Yeah.
But these are mice, so I guess it would be like
their own journalists.
I don't. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense because we see like the exact same paper later in the movie that the kid has. So you've got mice that are just making a smaller copy version.
Yeah.
Of the adult's paper.
The separation between the human world and the animal world in this movie is not very clear. Nobody
mice. Let's if we're going to be clear on one thing, it's the mice. Because one of the notes that happened that I took, which is emblematic of basically the whole film, is mice wear clothing. Mice can be heard by basically anyone because it fluctuates throughout the film. But dogs, no clothes. Cats, just regular house cats.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins, porpoises,
sharks,
no clothes. Sharks do have clothes.
One shark has clothes.
Now, they later on when they're in the battle, people are already very confused because I just said that there's sharks in a battle.
This is a movie about the Titanic.
Yes. He's not the only one who has it because the other sharks, their stripes match up to look like outfits as well, and a couple of them are wearing hats. He's not the only one. I think he's the only one who has like a prisoner ID tag, but there's other ones that are dressed up and designed in ways to look like they're wearing clothing.
I've got so many questions, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, so I will save them. But
so one of the kids grabs the newspaper and starts reading from it. And one of the first things they says is, a lot of people died. And the grandfather has a response to that, which this just gives you an idea of the dialogue in the film you're dealing with.
Liner goes down. 100 missing. A lot of people died, huh?
Well, youngster, it's a long and complicated story. The truth of the matter is that those missing persons were never really missing. It's all misunderstanding.
What the fuck? It was a misunderstanding?
What does that mean? Where did the people go?
They didn't really die, and it was an illusion. But yeah, you can hear from his voice, and he's just like, no, they didn't. But yeah, he starts out by saying that it's a very complicated story. Yeah, if you're a mouse living in the real world and you're about to tell the story of what happened, yeah, it's really fucking complicated.
It is. That is a true statement. This is a complicated tale.
He mentions that he used to be a sailor, so of course they flash back to when the Titanic was getting ready to set sail. First of all, we have no idea when the modern day section is supposed to be.
Yeah,
there's no reference.
No.
This mouse could be 1,000 years old, and this is like 21 whatever. We don't know.
When you've survived the Titanic, you live forever. I don't know if you knew that.
That's what happens. Is that you become immortal,
yep,
and no one else can see you.
Yep.
So it's like you disappeared. Just a giant misunderstanding. Immortality equals misunderstanding.
Maybe it's like the elves in Middle Earth. You just go to the west. Just journey to the west.
So they're just out in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. I guess in this world that makes sense. So we learn that the character's name is Top Connors, and he used to be a sailor. We never see him doing anything that a sailor would normally do, but he is wearing an outfit that does have a hat that says sailor, so we got to take him as his word. He is there helping round up a whole bunch of mice that are going to be coming aboard the Titanic. We don't know any of their stories or why they're riding on the Titanic.
It's not important. It's honestly not important.
Top does go down the list of the passenger manifest just to make sure that everyone's there. And what you learn is that 90% of the names that he lists are cheese metaphors and cheese puns, basically. And that the other 10% are mice and rat puns.
Isn't that like what you name your kids? Like, I'm going to name my kids pizza and tacos because because that's what I like to eat. Is that not what you do?
No. I mean, they had one kid's name is Gorgonzola.
Yeah, it's delicious cheese.
One of the lead mice that try to save the day later is a camembert. Is that?
I believe that's how it's pronounced. Yes.
Yes. Well, no, I was asking if that's what that one's name was.
Yeah, I mean the one who electrocutes himself to complete the SOS. I love just dropping stuff like that in here because people are gonna be like, "What?" Yeah, that happens. That happens.
So not only are there these mice, but then there's also all the humans, of course, that are getting ready to go on the ship. And we meet a duke. We don't know what he's the duke of. Well, no, I think they said later. I think they said he was, but
he's the duke of whaling shipping lanes.
No, that's how he made his money. But his title is the Duke of Candy.
Wait, really?
Not joking. Because I'm looking over my notes and I had to rewind it. He refers to himself as being the Duke of Candy.
Well,
I don't know if Candy is an actual country somewhere. If it is, I apologize to the people of Candy. But that's what he says. It's
judging by the amount of Halloween leftover candy I've had in the past couple days, I would say that I am the Duke of Candy.
Sure. There's also of course, his wife through marriage is a duchess. Again, doesn't say, what they are. But their daughter, Elizabeth, is one of the leads of the actual film on the human side. And she's been agreed to marry this guy whose name is, I'm going to fuck this up, so I apologize, but it's a terrible name. Everard Maltravers.
And he has an eye patch, so you know he's bad.
He looks like Alex Trebek with an eye patch.
He's playing the Billy Zane stand-in to Elizabeth's Rose, because while this movie is vastly different from the James Cameron film, there are parts of it that match up perfectly. Like when we meet Elizabeth, she steps out of a car and is wearing a wide brim hat, and then the brim is blocking her face, and then she looks up at the Titanic and is struck with wonder. Literally recreation of James Cameron's film, like shot for shot.
She wears a necklace that has a blue jewel or pendant on the end of it.
Yeah, she also wears a very low-cut shirt that shows a lot of cleavage for a kids movie.
It's one of the pictures on the IMDb page. So we're not making this up. If you go to the IMDb page and you're trying to learn about this film, where it has like the photos that it shows up, one of them is her very low cut dress.
Yep.
Doesn't make sure it's got the plunging neckline, and while there's nothing wrong with a plunging neckline or somebody wanting to feel beautiful about themselves, it's a rated G kids movie. So it seems a little out of place.
Yeah, and the movie like knows it's there.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
there's a scene where she's crying later and we see a tear like fall down her face through her cleavage, and it's like
into the ocean.
Come on, movie. What are you doing?
Which is funny because at the same time the person that she ends up falling in love with is wearing more clothes than should be necessary for most of the film.
Yes.
He has like 7 different names. He doesn't even introduce himself. Like his friends introduce him, and he is best described as Zorro by way of the Phantom of the Opera.
That's perfect.
And he is a gypsy. He is the prince of gypsies, and his name is Don Juan.
Yeah, but that's different. Does the movie know what gypsies are? Because
no.
His name seems Hispanic.
Yes.
But that's movie. Come on, Italians. You know better.
But it just, like, I'm trying to look through my notes because they mentioned, like, oh yeah, he's the Prince of Anna Lucia, I think they said, but it changes because they change like half the things they're saying throughout the film.
Yeah.
Like they'll refer to people as one name and then they'll mention it later. And so like they say that he's the Prince of this, but then when somebody else pronounces it later on, it sounds like it's a completely different place, which doesn't help with your continuity.
I would guess the script supervisor for The Legend of Titanic was not very highly paid and was not really focusing on their job.
No. So everybody gets onto the ship after like minor shenanigans that no one cares about ensue. There's a mouse who's Brazilian, but his name is Ronnie. And he's a troublemaker who is obsessed with soccer.
Because he's Brazilian, get it?
You have a talking dog that isn't able to talk the whole time, except for when he's able to talk to whoever he wants, whose name is Smiley. And he starts out the movie by peeing on a steward's leg and then stealing his hat.
Yeah.
And they spend like 8 minutes or like 5 minutes just focusing on that.
There's a weird beat of animals obsessed with hats in this movie. Yes. And I don't understand why.
I don't know. But the most important people out of all this is the Everard guy, the Duchess, another lady whose importance didn't really make any sense, and then the manservant of Everard, because they are together because Everard is trying to start a plot, basically, to end up getting the world whaling rights away from the Duke, which is the entire reason why he's agreed to marry his daughter. And they're also like plotting to kill him in the process.
Yeah. I don't get it. because the Duke's wife, the Duchess, who is, let's remember, a duchess, and obviously very well off because she is married to a Duke, is for some reason in on this plot as well.
Yes. She is in on it because it seems like through their very, very complicated long con that they set it up for her to get married to the Duke, so that if he should die, then she gets the money, which she would then split with Everard because that's who she's in love with. But because she wouldn't be able to get the whaling rights necessarily because of the daughter, they had to make sure that she got engaged to Everard so that they had kind of a backup plan. So if they needed to kill her, they could do that. But at the same time, in lieu of a dowry, he was going to get the Duke to sign over the exclusive world whaling rights.
This is a kid's movie with talking mice. Why is this so fucking complicated?
Well, we've got an example of right before they get on the boat, one of the comments that Everard makes to his manservants.
You can count on me, boss. I wouldn't count on you if you were an abacus. Just get busy.
It's a fucking deep burn there.
This is a G kids movie. Like, kids aren't even going to know what that is. Second of all, this movie was in 1999. Were you using an abacus in 1999? I know it's a period film, but we're talking about a world in which there are mice continually talking about soccer because they know that kids are interested in soccer. What kids are interested in abacus? You
didn't like I can't even tell the joke. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous.
You can't do it. You can't do it. Oh. So everybody's on the boat attempting to have a good time. The mice are gathered together around, we'll try to figure out this guy's job in a second because I'd love to hear your opinion.
But it's like it doesn't make any sense because like
that's what I'm saying. But all that you need to know is that there is a mouse that looks like it's dressed like a captain.
But the ship is steered by the humans.
And they're in the bowels of the ship.
Yeah.
Like, with broken plates and shit around them.
What would you say you do here, Captain Mouse?
On top of it, the captain himself has, I don't know, it's not really racist, but it is the most thick, stereotypical Scottish accent you can think of.
Yeah. And like they kind of drew him to look similar to the actual captain of the Titanic,
who's not Scottish.
No.
No.
So I don't know what like I really feel like it's like they just got whoever they had around to do voice work, because
they're just doing whatever they want. This is a 2D animated film that 5 different times throughout the movie decides that they want to have a spinning 360 CGI model shot.
Oh, and it's as good as you would think. A 1999 cheap ass CGI.
They just got the program that day. They just got the software, and they're like, "We need to take this for a spin."
And they did it.
Good old grandfather, while narrating the story, talks about the ship and has another questionable piece of dialogue for a children's film.
I still say she was the most beautiful ship that ever plowed the waves.
Is that the word that you would use for
I
that?
don't. It doesn't.
Do ships plow waves?
It's not like the image that comes to mind is rather confusing. It's very confusing. It's like I sat there and I had to pause it, and my wife, who was watching it with me, said, "What did he just say?" And I said, "No, he said what you thought he said." And she goes, "First of all, he's a mouse. Second of all, what the fuck?" And that's what the movie's filled with. The movie is filled with these moments. They have a dinner party once everybody's on the ship that's just for the well-to-do people, and half of it are conversations that have nothing to do with what's going on in the film, and it's intercut with the captain talking about how he really wants to stay on the bridge of the ship and he really doesn't want to go to the how-to-do party, and that his first mate needs to call down and say that there's an emergency, even if there's not an emergency, just to make up an emergency. Which
is the necessary beat that the movie needs.
Exactly. It's just like, okay. So while all this is going on, they're having conversations back and forth. Elizabeth is involved. She's talking about how she wishes people would actually ask her opinion instead of making decisions for her.
Gotta hit those Titanic beats.
Well, yeah, and the fact that she's marrying this guy. While this is going on across the room, Ronnie and Top are watching everything that transpires, while also scoping out the room to decide what food they're going to grab at the end of the evening. And then we get to Scott's favorite moment of the film, because Elizabeth gets upset and walks out of the room, and this shit happens.
I hate to be a spoil sport, but I would like to draw to your attention the fact that she's a woman and you're a mouse.
Well, there's one thing I'm not, and that's a racist. That girl is a masterpiece of beauty, and we Brazilians always appreciate beauty.
What? Racist?
Yeah,
racist?
That's how I like to start every piece of a conversation. Well, I think that the Chiefs played a really good game against the Broncos. Well, I'm not a racist, and I do like appreciating good football, so I'm going to take that game to heart. Who starts a response like that?
Like, I feel like his buddy was just trying to explain the problem with the physical limitations of a mouse being in love with a human, and his response is, I'm not a racist, so we have to help her now.
Yes, the comment would be speciesist, because you are a different species. That is what's happening. No one is coming. And then he decides to drop in that he's Brazilian.
Yes, I am Brazilian, so we appreciate attractive women with low-cut dresses.
I'm not racist, but let me tell you what race I am.
I'm not racist, but let's stereotype the shit out of my home.
Scott, I'm not a racist, but we Cubans, we love sandwiches with pulled pork and ham.
It's a little bit racist. Yes. But the whole point of the scene is now that they have to help Elizabeth because they saw that she was suffering and they're mice, so apparently it's their problem to help her.
Is that what
now.
Mice do?
Apparently.
She runs outside to the bow of the ship and decides to have the cry that Scott mentioned a minute ago. And while she's crying, a dolphin is just ever so slightly peeking its head out of water so that when the teardrop falls and hits the nose of the dolphin, it turns into fireworks.
Yeah, that's that sounds weird when you're just listening to it, but that is literally exactly what happens.
There's fireworks, and then she starts to hear a voice calling out to her, and she realizes that she's able to hear the dolphin speaking to her, and that she can hear, that it has a human voice. And the explanation that she's given, Scott, did you get this written down word for word? Because I know we don't have the clip for it.
Yeah. Her tear fell into a net of magic moonbeams that caught it. And then the dolphin took that tear and then added a little more stuff and did a spell of their own. So now she can hear dolphins. So that's... Also, the dolphins can jump like 100 feet into the air and kind of float a little bit.
Yeah, while flapping their fins.
Yeah.
It's the creepiest thing in the entire world. Because I couldn't figure out, if the dolphin was flying, which, no, it's not flying.
No.
I couldn't tell if the dolphin just was continually jumping. And yes, technically it was, but then it was flapping its fins and being able to stay in midair. This is also a film where not all animals have their correct appendages, because there are a couple sharks that have arms.
Yeah. This is
not fins. Not fins. Arms.
This is the part, up until this point, I guess it should be said, I did not, read anything about this movie before I saw it. I just sat down and watched it.
Did I.
And this is up until this point, you're like, okay, this is a Titanic movie, except they added mice like Cinderella did, and they're just going to do the story of Titanic. And then all of a sudden, now we have moonbeams and talking dolphins, and the dolphins lay out the bad guy's plan for us for some reason.
Wait. Would you say that there's an overarching theme that most people wouldn't see coming, Scott?
I think that's putting it mildly, yes.
Let's give this a listen.
If you were in my place, young lady, you'd have no time to cry. We're engaged in a desperate battle to save the lives of our friends, the whales. The Maltravers ships are hunting the poor things near to extinction. Now he's enlarged his fleet and intends to hunt them even in waters which up till now have been forbidden to whalers. It will be a catastrophe. The whales will be massacred unless there's some sort of miracle.
Yeah. That's what 3/4 of the movie is about that the whales are in danger.
Yeah, the story of the Titanic is actually an anti-whaling message.
Yeah. There is literally a scene while the Titanic is sinking that is nothing but dolphins and sharks fighting each other underwater.
Yes, because we all know that in the war against the whales, the sharks are on team kill the whales, apparently.
Yes. Sharks, which answer to a special magical whistle, and that are able to just regularly communicate with humans.
Yeah, they don't no moonbeams.
Yeah,
no magic spells.
They don't need any of that. They're just able to talk regularly. They dress like they are prisoners.
So was the shark in prison? Why?
No, he's just dressed that way.
Why?
Unless the ocean is his prison.
And remember at the beginning of the movie when the little kid almost blew into the magic whistle and he was like, no, don't do that. You'll call ICE. Would the shark have come into the apartment?
Well, we're never going to know because the kid didn't blow it.
Because it's not in the water. Like, I don't understand.
It doesn't, none of it matters. That's the important thing. None of it matters because for a large section of the middle of the film, the mice do talk to Elizabeth and say, hey, we're going to help you. And then continue to give her terrible advice while they're coming in and out of rooms. A whole bunch of people continually talk about nothing. Mal Travers gets so upset that things are not going at the speed that he wants with the Duke, ends up taking the Duke hostage and forcing him against his will to sign his last will and testament.
Well, the crazy
signing the exclusive whaling rights over to Mal Travers.
The crazy thing about all this is like, we have the start of the movie and it's very clear that Elizabeth does not want to marry this guy. And her father, the Duke, is like, no, you have to listen to me, blah, blah, blah. And then halfway through the movie,
she goes and tells him.
She just like, I don't want to marry him. And he's like, of course I'd never make you do something you don't want to do. And you're like, wait.
I fully support this.
Wait, what? What? So there's that part of the conflict just gone.
Yeah. It's there's so much on the ship that just resolves itself apropos of nothing.
Yeah.
But it's just everything's nonsense that's going on the ship. Directly after one of these instances occurs, it cuts to the group of gypsies who end up saying this.
Come on, muchachos, let's liven things up and go to bed happy after a good flamenco! Hi-ya!
Again, they're supposed to be gypsies.
Well, I mean, there are Spanish gypsies, but it's just the way that they're proclaiming it.
Yeah, but like they're not like, they're kind of like, I understand there's Spanish gypsies and Don Juan is dressed like appropriately, but I think all the other gypsies are dressed like stereotypical like Eastern European gypsy kind of. So it's just like this weird, like it's just like they didn't give a shit. They just did this stuff.
No, yeah, that I totally get. I would definitely say that they didn't give a shit. They don't give a shit about much. In the film. I mean, they have things that are just being thrown out left and right.
Yeah, well, there's the love, the setup between Elizabeth and Juan.
Oh my God,
which is like totally immaterial to anything that's going on. But
they meet in like the second or third scene before they get on to the boat. They meet because Smiley goes up to Elizabeth and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to pet you. Let me take off my glove." And then he steals a glove and gives it to Don Juan, who says to Smiley, "Oh, Smiley, you're the king of hunters," which doesn't make sense. He throws the glove up in the air. Don Juan grabs it, smells it, and says, "Ah, a truly intoxicating fragrance."
And then later in the movie, he rubs the glove on his face. It's so weird.
He's just, everyone's just going about their business, and he's just standing on the deck of the ship and just rubs it on his face.
And there's like, in the original Titanic, there was this whole class structure, right? Where the steerage people couldn't go to first class. That's not here. So like, there's literally nothing stopping him from finding this girl. She's just on the ship. It's not that big.
He's able to be on the bridge of the ship, but I don't think he's able to go into certain certain rooms. Like when Smiley tries to go into, I know, but well, I mean, Prince of Gypsies, so I don't think they're okay with that. But there's a scene where Smiley tries to go into like the main dining hall, and the chef guy finds him, grabs him by the scruff of his neck, and then just like overhead throws him out of the room.
Well, yeah, usually you don't allow loose dogs into a place where people eat food. That's normal. It's pretty standard operating procedure.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But usually if you grab him by the scruff of the neck, then you're just going to be holding that scruff until you get out. And then you're going to close the door. You don't grab him by the scruff of the neck, then take your other hand, lift them above your head, and throw them out of the room like that.
You know, I think Smiley deserves it. I think Smiley deserves it.
Throw the dog overboard.
The damn dog.
So shortly after he's thrown outside that room is when Smiley Lee meets the mice and is like, "Oh no, we need to get these two together." So that's it. They just literally convinced the two people to be on this part of the ship at the same time together, and then magically they're in love.
And then there's a mouse orchestra with songbirds and a dance party where everyone's like, Don Juan is super chill with a bunch of mice playing instruments and dancing, and this is when I don't understand the world. Yeah, well, there's that one weird beat that like, if it's true love, their souls will intertwine, and then he'll be able to hear us speak too, which I'm just, what?
None of this is as weird as the main crux of the film, which is the actual sinking of the Titanic.
Yeah.
We mentioned that there's, sharks and that there's dolphins, and the dolphins are really worried about the whales. What we didn't mention is that there's a childlike octopus who gets bullied by the sharks. Is it a he or she? Do we know?
We do not.
Okay.
It is. I mean, technically,
the asexual.
Technically, it's asexual.
They just call it tentacles. That's all. That's all we know. It's designated, so we'll just call it tentacles.
Yeah.
Tentacles wants to be accepted by everybody. So when some of the sharks end up giving them some attention, they decide that they're going to run with it. And the sharks end up tricking Tentacles to throw it looks kind of like a crystal or like a whole bunch of crystals together.
I mean, like it's supposed to be an iceberg, but the whole thing about icebergs is that they're floating and they're under the water. So it's just a chunk of ice under the water that he's having him throw,
which ends up getting lodged in the rudder or the propeller.
The iceberg gets lodged? I didn't think it did.
Well, no, the first part that he does, because there's the iceberg that's ahead, and then there's
I thought the sharks just held on to the rudder to keep it from turning.
They should all possibly be dead if they're that close to the propeller.
I mean, the movie's not going for realism here.
So, just out of happenstance, everyone who's manning the bridge of the ship happens to be looking down at something and then slowly looks up and is like, oh no, an iceberg. We should probably turn. And they can't turn because they're having problems with the rudder, and that's how they end up striking the iceberg.
Yeah, so if you heard that the Titanic sunk because they were going way too fast at night and their rudder wasn't built to be able to turn wide enough, fast enough? No, that's not it. It's because an octopus was tricked into throwing an iceberg by a shark in a prison outfit. That's how it works.
Yes. So from there on out, it's basically the story that you know for the most part. Everybody's trying to get off the ship. People are trying to find loved ones, families, friends, and everything. The mice learned of the plot that Everard and the Duchess are setting about, and they hear that they need to send a message to somebody letting them know to ready the fleet of ships and everything. And they decide that they're going to cut the wires to the telegraph machine. when the boat starts sinking, they realize, oh no, we need to get an SOS out, but it's next to impossible to be able to fix the wires. So they bring along Camembert, who
hasn't been an important character at all.
No, but all they mentioned before is that he knows how to steal cheese.
Yeah,
and when they go to recruit him for help, he's stealing cheese.
Naturally.
But he says that, oh, I'll come with you. And he decides in his fantastic judgment that he is going to grab his whiskers, his mustache, essentially on his mouse face, and connect it to the telegraph terminal relay so that they're able to get the SOS out, thereby electrocuting him to death in the process. Shown on screen.
Yes.
Shown on screen.
He dead.
He's dead.
Is that how electricity works, Adrian?
I don't believe so. I don't know the makeup of mice whiskers, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
Okay. Yeah, we God forbid we're a little inaccurate here. I would hate to say something untrue.
Everybody is getting off the ship, and they're casually waving. Why, Scott?
I don't know. Why are they waving? Because the water is freezing and there are plenty of boats.
Because there's plenty of boats. That's what you pointed out to me that I didn't realize they said.
Yeah.
In the movie, is that one of the stewards ends up letting everybody know that there's no need to worry because they have plenty of boats to get everybody off the ship.
Everyone take your time. There's plenty of boats.
Yeah.
There's enough room for everyone.
As everyone's being lowered down from the horrendous sinking ship, people are just casually waving.
Yeah.
Like, bye. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah. It's a wonderful, nice little...
Save for Elizabeth and Don Juan, because they're idiots, and they decide that they're going to stay to the very last minute. And what's helping them in the process is that the octopus who end up causing all the problems is actually a giant octopus.
Yeah, it's basically a kraken. Like that's what it is.
It's Godzilla, King Kong level octopus.
It's big enough to reach all the way around the Titanic.
Exactly, and that's what Tentacles is told is, hey, if you want to make up for hurting the ship, then you need to make sure that it doesn't, fall apart and completely sink until everyone's off it. And so Tentacles goes up and wraps their tentacles around it, sees that the captain's still on the bridge of the ship, saves them.
The captain has decided to go down with the ship, even though there's plenty of room on the lifeboat. He's like, nah, I'm gonna. And
the difference in this version is that because they have plenty of lifeboats, they show that the entire string quartet is in one of the lifeboats playing. They're not playing while the ship goes down. They're playing while they're floating away. So they made sure to keep that piece of history and turn it ever so slightly.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to contradict the actual history, right? So you gotta fit everything in.
As the ship's about to sink, they've got Elizabeth and Don Juan and Smiley and the two mice on the very, very back tip of the ship.
Oh, isn't that where Rose and Jack hung out?
Yeah. Huh. Except for they decide, well, mostly Elizabeth ends up saying that as long as she's with Don Juan, she feels safe. And they both jump off the back of the ship, dying in the process.
Yeah, they're dead. The end.
But no, it's a kids movie, so that they casually land in the water. They don't shatter their legs or anything like that. They're perfectly fine, except for they're underwater for about 2 minutes or so, and then the whale saves them. So they should die of hypothermia.
Nope.
But they don't either. They don't either, and they are completely dry the next morning when a ship picks everybody up and takes them back home. When they get back home, Elizabeth is able to automatically get married to Don Juan without
Hooray.
any issue because Everard and the Duchess, his manservant, and the other lady were able to get their own lifeboat and just started rowing away. The newspaper boy, who's ever omniscient, like within a day of everybody being back, is running around telling the people, that these people have disappeared somewhere in the North Atlantic. The scene then cuts back to them again in the little rickety boat, just floating off into the distance.
So they're dead, right? Right?
I'm guessing they're dead, but the film just doesn't tell you. It's just like, they're bad guys. Occasionally they go away, No one's actually really safe, and they could come back stronger than ever and destroy their life. But for now, they're gone. There's nothing to worry about.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
And there's nothing to worry about at all, even, because the people who were thought to have died, which, fuck, I feel bad because we forgot to mention, in the process of
Tentacles died.
holding on to the ship as it was sinking to the bottom of the ocean, Tentacles didn't just let go and slowly drift out of the way, but decided that they were going to continue to hold on to it because of their guilt for hurting the ship in the first place, and was dead on the ocean floor. and they showed that they had a little memorial for it, and just as the scene ends, you see Tentacles grab a bunch of the flowers and then throw it up in the air of the water. Yeah. So Tentacles isn't dead.
Hooray.
And Tentacles decides to show up in New York to congratulate both Don Juan and Elizabeth on their marriage.
And again, everyone in New York, super chill about the giant talking
totally
octopus.
fine with it. They're right by the bridge. Everybody's totally cool with it. And the mice end up running on at the same time to see Tentacles and everything. And that's when all of a sudden one of them goes, "Oh, look, it's Camembert." And the other one goes, "No, that can't be. We saw him died." And then Camembert pops up and goes, "It is me, mon ami."
So the guy, where did he go? Did they just leave him on the ship even though he was still alive?
I don't know. He was still, but they were crying over his dead, fried body, which still had his whiskers attached to the wires.
Just kidding, I'm back.
So nobody dies in the movie. Literally, nobody dies.
It's been a story about the Titanic.
Story about the Titanic. Everyone is saved. Everyone's okay. The two animals that you visibly see dead on screen come back to life.
So who wrote the newspaper article about hundreds of people going missing?
It's the newspaper boys company, I'm guessing.
Fake news, I guess, was this really really ahead of its time.
Wow. No. And then the film just ends on a really shitty song too.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so bad. One of my favorite things about the IMDB page that we mentioned is that in the trivia section, it mentions that the song is longer than the credits. So after the credits stop rolling, there's just a black screen as the song continues.
Yeah, I did not wait around that long.
No, I did not.
But the thing, like we kind of like hinted towards this, but the IMDb page for this movie is someone spent some time here.
Angry.
Someone spent a lot of time nitpicking this movie about an octopus that throws a chunk of ice at the Titanic. Like, there are things in this movie, like, they wanted the ship to sink at midnight, and someone says, actually, in real life, the ship hit an iceberg at 11:40. And you're like, what? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Where was it? Ronnie's soccer ball is the size of a ping pong ball. In one scene, it mysteriously changed into a regular-sized soccer ball that had enough mass to knock Maltravers onto a cart.
When one of Top Connor's children reads the newspaper describing the Titanic tragedy, Monday is spelled Mo-Day. The date on the paper was April 14th, 1912, which was actually a Sunday, not a Monday. Who the fuck cares?
Yes. Well, it's not as bad as the one that I got mad at because I actually had an answer for it. Is that it said, how did the Dolphins possibly know that Maltravers plans to expand his whaling, or know about Maltravers' plans to expand his whaling operation when only Maltravers' manservant knew about it and no one else? It's because they mentioned that they've seen lots of his boats appearing in the area. If you're a dolphin and you've had run-ins with a couple boats and then lots more boats start showing up, you know that somebody's expanding their business. They explained it in the movie.
Also,
I hate that I'm taking the dolphin side on this, but
also they're fucking talking dolphins, and who cares?
They can know everything. The film implies that hundreds of people who were thought to have died on the Titanic actually went missing. In reality, 1,517 people died.
Only 6 of 8
okay.
people found that interesting. Smoke rises from the 4th smokestack. It was actually a dummy used to ventilate the ship's kitchen. Like, we got a lot of Titanic purists here coming to nitpick this movie to death about the octopus and the talking sharks with prison outfits. Like, what are you doing, people?
You can keep your giant octopi. You can keep your mouse in their fancy clothes, but god damn it, if there's a 4th stack, no, it's not real.
Oh my god. Like, at some point, the person doing this has to just sit back and be like, what am I doing with my life?
I'm pretty sure that person's kicking back and going, I bet I've educated some people today.
Well, I mean, technically they did. I did not know that the 4th smokestack was a dummy one used to ventilate the kitchen. So now I know.
They've mentioned that on a couple documentaries about the Titanic. Do you not watch documentaries
Apparently
on the Titanic?
I don't.
Or have you
Apparently
never seen one before?
Apparently I don't.
It's because there's no giant men on it.
Well, yeah. Did you know that the Mouse Orchestra plays jazz, but jazz hadn't even been invented yet?
Okay, so we've covered the film. It's quite painful. Do you have any ray of sunshines?
I think we covered it already. I mean, I think the racism speech is probably my favorite. And everything to do with Tentacles is great. Tentacles and his friend Killer Whale that's trying to warn him against the sharks, who they just lock in a ship. Oh my god.
It's so ridiculous. I liked, because there were a whole bunch of quips that Maltravers throws out to his manservant continually throughout the film. I think we've got a clip of my favorite one, just because I kept on thinking to myself, this movie started with talking mice. Now this is what's happening.
Well, my replaceable factotum, why the cackling? Pray, let me in on the joke. I like a laugh as well as the next man.
Someone had a lot of fun with the thesaurus.
Exactly. I'm like, replaceable factotum. I like that line, but I don't think kids are going to relate to that very well. And then just I like a good laugh. it's so desperate and awkward. It's like, yes, we want to add, pathos to this character who's the bad guy in a film where it doesn't really matter.
The next time I'm in a meeting at work, I'm going to call everyone replaceable factotums.
Replaceable factotums.
Yeah.
Or the next time somebody's late, you tell them that
if I walk into the break room and people are laughing, I'll be like, what is the joke, my replaceable factotums?
What are you laughing about? I enjoy a good joke too,
I too like the humor things.
Okay, so what is your vote?
Here's the thing. I had a lot of fun talking about this movie, but this is one of those ones where talking about how ridiculous it is actually more fun than watching it, because the actual act of sitting down and watching this movie even though it's only 82 minutes long, is pretty torturous. So
Yeah.
I am going to say, as much fun as this conversation was, it is still guilty. It's just an annoying, stupid movie.
No, I completely agree with you. It's very much guilty. And that's the interesting thing about when you talk about these films that are difficult to get through. And we'll have a good example in being able to find out next week if it's the same for new people who are coming in and doing it. But when you're talking about it, and I'm not saying it's on the same level, it's just something to mentally compartmentalize and picture for like the way it feels, is that it's kind of akin to like a survivor group. In that it like a support group where you're talking through the thing so that you can compartmentalize it in a healthy way and laugh about something that's sometimes, depending, a traumatizing experience. And so that's how it feels, is that you survived this movie, but you don't feel the same. So talking about the terrible things that you saw and that you went through with another individual who went through the same thing is what helps you regain a semblance of that sanity.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most realistic metaphors that you've had so far. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think, yeah.
And so that's
it was
why
actually pretty torturous. I mean, yeah, this was one of those movies that felt long.
Yeah, it's. I don't mean this for every film, but I mean this one definitely does get it. We're commiserating.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
so that's what it comes down to, and that's how we're laughing through the tears of pain.
Well, it's gone though. It's in the Phantom Zone. We never have to talk about it again.
It's in the Phantom Zone. We don't know what we're going to be doing next week. We have put options out there. There's some wonderful candidates. There are some terrible candidates.
So I would think Dee Dee would pick a horror film, right? That's what I would think.
Well, that's what you think. I don't know per se. Maybe she want to go against the grain.
Maybe.
So there's that chance.
I would love it if there's always that chance.
I would love it if somebody grabs like the polar opposite of what you'd expect them to choose. Because since they're a guest and this is a one-time thing, they might want to totally embrace it and choose like the one that they think they're going to have the hardest time getting through.
Yeah, that's
true. It's like a badge of honor in a way.
That's true, yeah.
I know that Jill will be in that boat because she even mentioned, she's like, I'm not a huge fan of bad movies. And I was like, this is going to be great. Get someone who is wholly mentally unprepared for, to be in a situation like this. That now has to be at least for one like 90-minute period. No, I think it'll have a good perspective. I mean that's what when I see Genius and Greg, that's something that they mention, is that they want to be on the show again because they really liked having the opportunity to just rag in a film, but still break it down in a semi-educational fashion, as opposed to just saying this movie sucks, but saying these are the things that suck about this movie, and here's issues that need to be corrected in the future.
Yeah.
So if you come from that aspect, I think it's okay. If you're like, I just want to have fun talking about this movie, I don't really like lots of bad movies, and then you see one of the films that we give you, then you might say, is there a chance that I don't do this now?
I think we're going to have some fun. I think
it will.
I think these poor women are probably going to be pretty tortured because you have like inoculated me to these bad movies now. I understand what I'm getting into. It's been a year. I get it now. But yeah, these poor people have not done this nearly as much as we have.
No. And there's some good ones that I know we will eventually do in like the next 2 months, because it's basically I'm sending out like the same type of list to most people.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things get chosen, then it dwindles that list down more. So I don't have to worry about crossovers or anything like that.
Makes sense.
There's some frightening ones. One that I'm excited and hope to do deals with very bad bounty hunters. And like everything in the movie is just supposed to be made the cheapest way possible. But it does star Jan Michael Vincent, who Rick and Morty fans are familiar with Jan Quadrant Vincent 16. And what sold me, and the reason why I really hope that one of the first like 2 people choose it, is because the story was for this movie that's on the list. I'm not gonna tell you the name, so no hints or any guesses like that. But he, it turns out that he was a raging alcoholic, and this was the film that it affected. So like the majority of the film is him drunk. And the times that he gets mad in this movie are when they like caught him like in a manic state where it was like basically his mind was like, I haven't been able to have a drink for this many hours, and he's like going crazy, and I guess like half his lines are slurred because of how drunk he was on set. So okay. I was like, yes, this is the one that I want to see. That's what I want to see. You've got space bounty hunters, and you've got Jan Michael Vincent drunk out of his gourd acting in this film. That's how you get when you get to this many number of those things.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I hope somebody chooses that one, because that just sounds absolutely terrible. But yeah. So where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at ScottDaly85. That's DALY. Or you can find me at my website, dailyplanetfilms.com, and that's where you'll find all the other podcasts I do, including this one actually. But everything I do is there.
That's perfect. And I can be found at Adrian Torres on Twitter. My writing's at Boom Howdy. I've got a Thor review that by the time you guys hear this will already be up and online. I enjoyed the movie for the most part. There's actually a part towards the end of the review where I say that the only real issue is that you'll get to the point where that everybody is basically when it comes to the Marvel films, where you say it's great or I really liked it, but, and then you just complain about essentially the same things at this point. And that it's basically a joke by now that what hurts the Marvel films isn't the people who are making the films, but the fact that Marvel's like, okay, here's our structure, here's your template. Got to keep it the same. Got to have these certain beats. Got to have this type of story structure. Go. And so it's truly at a point where you can't blame the filmmakers, but because you're grading the film as a whole, you take it like 1 to 2 points down from there. So while it sits at an 8 out of 10, it's lots of fun, and it's one of the funniest movies of the year. All
right. I'm seeing it tomorrow, so looking forward to it.
I hope you like it. I will be doing essentially a real life Phantom Zone type thing. We're not going to be covering it here, but my film that I'm going to the screening for next week to review is officially Daddy's Home 2.
Oh boy.
Yes. Because my comment was, yes, I'm okay doing that, because I do need at least one bad holiday film to get out of the way.
Well, there it is. You got it.
There you go. Okay. I'm really excited for next week, so I really hope that you guys come back and give it a listen. Until then, be safe.
Bye-bye.
You again. One
You can wish on a star if you try.